Hello and welcome to the Rewind, where we dive into the making and legacy of various films from cult classics to award-winning masterpieces. Today's movie is The Craft, the 1996 teen supernatural horror film that stars Robin Tuney, Fairuza Balk, Neve Campbell, and Rachel True as four outcast teenage girls who pursue witchcraft for their own gain, only to face very dark consequences. Joining me today to talk about The Craft is Lauren Grimson. She's an award-winning actress who, after her breakthrough role in The Legend of Ben Hur, has become a prolific presence in movies and TV, with credits including Beast of War, The Possessed, Wormwood Apocalypse, and upcoming films including the horror comedy Pray for Dawn and the sci-fi film Roar. Is that how you say it, Lauren? Roar or
Oh,
R-U-R?
R-U-R.
R-U-R.
Yeah, R-U-R. Yeah.
Directed by Alex Proyas, the band behind The Crow and Dark City and so many other films. And also Lauren is a big fan of horror to the point where she's also a patron of the Dark Nights Film Festival, which is such a terrific thing. And it's a terrific to have you on board today, Lauren, to talk all things The Craft. How are you?
Oh, thanks so much, Matt. What an intro. I'm really good. I'm really excited to talk about The Craft. It was like such an important movie in my life growing up. I think I probably watched it about 30 times. I was absolutely obsessed with it, and it's just really nice to nerd out with someone about that and to be on your show. So thanks for having me.
I'd love to have you on. And similar to you, this is a movie I watched repeatedly when I was like a teenager. So I have to set the scene here for where I come from with this movie. So I was born in 81. So this movie comes out in 96. I was 15 years old. And I specifically remembered at that time of my life, um, 96. Goth was in, Marilyn Manson, Typo Negative, Nine Inch Nails, all that stuff. But
Yeah.
then at the same time, there's this other thing going on where teen movies were really starting to be a thing. You had Scream, Clueless came out in 95, American Pie will come out afterwards. So this movie comes out, and to me, I remember when I watched it, the reason why I wanted to watch it is because I saw the trailer and we had that great line, it's like where the weirdos mister has that great
Yeah.
line in it. I was like, oh, I gotta watch this. Because it was
Yeah.
kind of like I wouldn't say I was a goth kid, but I was hanging around with a lot of goth people, because it was just such a big thing then. And after watching it, I loved it so much because it's kind of like a blend of Carrie and The Lost Boys. A little bit of Heathers kind of put in there as well. And it
Yeah.
was a movie made for the time, but it wasn't something that kind of made fun of it or kind of like exploited it. It was something that a lot of the goth people, at least a lot of them that I hung out with, including my first girlfriend, who was a goth, by the way, she was like, oh, this is awesome. And like, people really loved it to the point where now, like, I think they had a screening like 5, 10 years ago for one of the anniversaries, and there was a whole number of new goth kids that,
Oh,
weren't
so
even born when
cool.
the movie came out to
Green
watch
wave.
it.
Love
So,
that.
when was the first time you watched The Craft? When was the first time it came on your radar?
I definitely, so I'm a few years behind you. So I was too young to watch it at the cinema, but I definitely rented it from the local Video Easy about 500,000 times. And it was during that time when, like you said, it was kind of this like, not a resurgence, but like this kind of like introduction of like teen horror. And it was at the exact time when I was growing up. So those
Mm.
particular movies like The Craft and Scream and The Faculty were all coming out around that time. And they were all so influential on my life as it sounds like they were on yours as well. Um, so yeah, didn't catch it at the movies, but I rented it just for years from the video store, and I would get my friends from the neighborhood to come over, and we had our own like little craft coven with like spells and like things in the backyard. I'm sure much to my parents' dismay, being like, we have a very strange child. But yeah, it's such a formative film, and I think very ahead of its time
Yeah.
too.
It's an interesting film because I did a whole bunch of research on this. So the origins of the film goes all the way back to 1990. So you have Doug Wick, who's a producer in the film, and
Mhm.
then you have a screenwriter as well, Peter Filardi. They kind of collaborated and made this film what it was. So Doug Wick was actually a producer on his movie called Flatliners. Have you ever seen that film? Flatliners, Julia
Oh,
Roberts, Kevin Bacon.
sounds familiar.
It's a film that came out in 1990. It was kind of like a movie where it's like it stars these really young up and coming cast, like I said, Julia Roberts, Kiefer Sutherland, Kevin Bacon, Oliver Platt, all these people in this one film. And it's kind of like a supernatural kind of horror. Not the best movie, but great to look at. Joel Schumacher directed it. So on that set, Doug Wick, producer, said to the screenwriter Peter Filardi, "I want to do something about witches, but I want to make like a teenage movie as well," because he was talking about, Carrie and all these films. And at the time, Phil Hardy actually said, which was really interesting, that at the time he was actually immersed in the world of teen Satanism and was on a volatile cocktail of hallucinogens and heavy metal and magic
Oh,
and was into all that kind of stuff. So it was like right in his field house. So
wow.
he said he was also fascinated by someone called Ricky Casso, who was a pioneer in teen Satanism. Haven't looked him up yet, but I'm really kind of interested to see what this is
Yeah,
all
that's
about.
fascinating.
It is fascinating. So they kind of wanted to make it about these girls that come together and make a thing about witches. And it's kind of really interesting because I don't remember at that time in the 90s, especially, that many movies about witches.
Yeah.
Other than Witches, the Roald Dahl movie, I think they came out like late 1980s. I can't really think of anything else. Do you remember anything like
Yeah,
that at the time?
there was Practical Magic, obviously, was another big one, but I don't know what year that came out. I
Could have
feel
been. I think it was after. I think it was 98 or something that came out.
okay. Yeah, I remember there was Practical Magic and there was Hocus Pocus because I was obsessed with all three of those. But
Right.
I really feel like those were sort of the only ones around that time. And Hocus Pocus, I think, may have been even later than that, but I'd have to check that. I'm not too sure. But yeah, other than that, those were kind of the three, and I wore out those videotapes.
So you have kind of like this combination of the screenwriter and producer that want to make this thing. They have to find a director. So there's this guy named Andy Fleming. So
Mm.
at the time, he was kind of known for like the indie world. Excuse me. He did a film called Threesome. I think it had Brad Pitt in it. It was like a movie that came out like in the early 90s. So he did that. He did some horror as well. And they had him wanted to, do another attack on the script. And for him, he said that this movie went back to the time of his experience as a goth in the 80s. He
Ah,
kind of
okay.
said his high school wasn't pretty in pink. It was very serious. It was very goth. It was like all that kind of stuff in the 80s as well. And a lot of the characters in the film that he kind of framed in it were based on people he knew in high school.
Oh no
So
way.
the character of like say Bonnie, the Campbell character with the burns and all that, that was someone he knew. The one character that was played by Robin Tuney in the character of Sarah, who had a suicide attempt, he knew someone like that as well. So he actually used his own experiences and kind of put it all together in his kind of thing. And he's also had just want to do something on attacking misconceptions about paganism and things like that as well, and dive more into the witchcraft and stuff. And I think that's kind of interesting as well because the movies that kind of you spoke of with Hocus Pocus and Practical Magic, I think a lot of that's kind of like the more fantastical stuff. But the
Yes.
thing that's cool about the craft is almost kind of like is delving into the mysticism, the theology of witchcraft in a much more serious way.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting that you did that deep dive into Andy Fleming because I just had like a bit of a look into him because I was like, oh, I've never looked at who directed this film and who
Mm,
wrote this film. And so I did like a little bit of cursory research. And it's funny that you mentioned that he said that it was from his like formative school years and that he was a goth at that time because I read something where he said, I wanted the principal cast to look like they were in The Cure. And I was like, oh, I love that so much. That's great. And I was like, yeah, it works. Like Fairuza Balk, like Nancy in it does look like you could put her in The Cure. Like
yep.
it's such a specific aesthetic. But yeah, what an interesting guy as well. Because I was like, oh, what's the rest of his filmography? Like, what is it? What was it before The Craft? Because it's such a stylized thing. And so I was like, okay, maybe he's got like his particular bent of like sort of goth films or whatever. But he's so expansive. Like he's done all these really different things, even to the point now where he's directing Emily in Paris, which I was so
Mm.
surprised to see that. And I was like, wow, what an interesting career. What an interesting man.
It is actually very interesting in that I've been doing a whole bunch of these rewind episodes now, and a lot of the filmmakers in the 80s and 90s, even the ones who do something big like The Craft, their
Mm.
filmography is very broad and expansive because they can take the work where it comes, you know.
Mhm.
TV, music videos seem to be like something that really comes through a lot as well.
Mm.
And Andrew Fleming, like you're saying, like Emily Paris, it doesn't really surprise me that there's filmmakers that I've looked at in some of these research, and they'll start off doing kind of like more action or whatever, and then they end up being like someone who does like a Netflix show or an NBC show or whatever. Because I think maybe have found that working in the film industry, just like the opportunities aren't there anymore, and so TV and streaming just leads to other avenues for them.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, but yeah, he also did he co-write it too? You were saying it's
He,
obviously,
yeah,
but
so he had the script and then he kind of rewrote the stuff with his own kind of perceptions in there,
wow.
including the whole thing about the whole Wiccan religion and stuff. And I actually brought on a consultant on the actual movie in regards to the chants and incantations. Someone called Pat Devon. She was credited in the movie as a technical consultant, but she
Yeah,
was really there to kind of make it real. So I guess it'd be no different than like, if someone's doing like a possession movie and they have a priest on board to say, whether this is all correct or not. It'd be the same kind of thing to them.
mm,
And he wanted to have her on board because they wanted to make sure that again, when that target market of people who want to watch this film do watch it, and maybe they are dabbling in that stuff or they know about it, they don't want to be kind of like offended by what's on the screen. They want to
yeah,
make sure that some of the stuff in there, even though a lot of the chance of stuff is more made for the film, it kind of speaks true to anything else in the movie. And it kind of made me actually want to ask you as well. You worked in a lot of horror. You've
yeah,
done like stuff like supernatural stuff as well, like The Possessed and all that. When it
yeah.
comes to that stuff that delves in that supernatural aspects kind of stuff, do you like to do a deep dive into what that stuff's really like, or do you just let the script kind of speak for what you that's going to be on screen?
I kind of because I'm like a very naturally curious person and I'm drawn to like, like Gothic literature and Gothic art and all of those things. I kind of had a lot of like a broad sort of scope of knowledge of that area before I went into it. But then, say, if I get a film like The Possessed, I only try to look into the specifics of that in terms of the occult and everything, in as far as like how much does my character know and how much is she meant to know at this point? Because if you go into it kind of knowing everything, but say your character's not meant to know everything until the end or maybe ever, I don't know. It probably doesn't read and it probably wouldn't necessarily inform your performance, but I try to approach it through that lens, if that makes sense. So
Mm.
even though I kind of have like a pretty decent understanding of the occult, yeah, like I said, if my character's not meant to know about this specific thing, I'll try not to look into it. But speaking of the possessed and having consultants on board, we actually had I don't know what you would call him. He's not a priest, but he's like um, what's the word?
Like a witch doctor or some sort, maybe, or
Not a witch doctor. Oh, it's escaping me right now. He um he was our consultant on the possessed, and anyway, he would do like he would come to the set every day and he would do like blessings and different things, and he had like a white witch friend to come and like protect us. And so we didn't know this was happening. Like we were introduced to him, and the film was actually based on him and a lot of his stories with like a lot of artistic license, obviously. But him and his White Witch friend would do different like spells and things unbeknownst to us while we were performing. Because the first day we got to set, it was Halloween, and we were shooting a possession scene in this set that had like a giant pentagram on the ground. And I was like, we're really just asking for it here. And apparently he'd been doing all of these like protection spells and different things for us. So yeah, that was really interesting talking to him and hearing his experiences. Even if you don't necessarily believe in that stuff, it's just always interesting to hear people's stories and perspectives and like different lives.
The Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you'll love. I it's just like yourself, I'm like interested in those kind of topics. Of
Mm.
course, I'm a big horror fan. Exorcist is my favorite movie, all that kind of stuff. I have a rule though for myself is that I don't dabble in the dark arts. I'm not touching the Ouija board. I'm not
Yeah.
going to a fortune teller. I'm not doing any of that stuff because I am I am a religious man and a bit superstitious in that regard as well. And so I kind of take it a lot of times it's like I take some of the stuff that's on the movies with a grain of salt, especially like the based on true story stuff. But I have enough respect for it, so don't fuck with it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and like I'm not gonna touch that at all. But it'd be interesting to see like if you had to be like perform that stuff and there's access to people that can give you kind of like notes and stuff like that.
Mm.
What a rabbit hole that would be because it'd be
Yeah.
so interesting to do. Is the word shaman you're looking for the
No,
person
I
you'll see?
just thought of it and I don't know why it escaped me, but he is an exorcist.
Okay, there we go.
As soon as you said The Exorcist is my favorite film, I'm like, he's an exorcist. Duh, that's what I was looking for.
Very cool.
Um, yeah, so whether you believe that or not, it's still fascinating to meet. Like, when do you meet an
Yep.
exorcist? Never. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and he's a really lovely, interesting man. And you would see, like, walking down the street, totally unassuming. Like, he's so jolly. He wears these, like, Hawaiian shirts every day. You'd just be like, oh, that guy's a tradie or something. And he's
Hmm.
like, I'm a career exorcist. But yeah, I guess it does kind of open you up to meeting all sorts of interesting people like that you might not otherwise meet.
Yeah. And Aussie Exorcist, definitely.
Yeah.
Thongs, I imagine as well, all that kind of thing. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
Because I
exactly.
remember how John portrays him in the movie. So yeah, that kind of suits that
Yeah.
kind of that deal.
And I
Yeah.
know that John does this very like iconic thing with his hand, but that's what Mark does. Like if you watch people are like, oh, that's a really strong, specific choice. But if you watch the videos of Mark doing his exorcisms, which we watched, and I think are at the end of the film after the credits roll, that's what he does with his hand. So it's kind of like shot for shot. John was really
Yeah.
good at recreating that. Yeah.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
want to talk about the casting, especially the four leads in the movie. So the first person cast in the movie was Rachel True. She plays the character Rochelle. That's the diver who gets all the racist attacks by what was it? Christine Taylor, the Ben Stiller's
Master
wife.
Brady.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, that's right in the movie. So the role of Rochelle was actually first written for a Caucasian girl.
Mm,
She was supposed to
right.
be Caucasian and bulimic. That was like the two things that was like of
Oh,
that
okay.
girl. But Rachel said that in interviews since then that she was a big fan of the movie Heathers, and she always wanted to be in a movie where, in 20 years after the movie comes out, like
Mm.
people will still watch it because it's such a classic. And she felt The Craft was that kind of film, and this is her chance, to be in it. So she really wanted to do it. Her agents said to her, "No, this isn't for you."
Oh,
And she
really?
said, and she kind of was like, "No, I'm right for it, and let's do it." And the screenwriter and director Andrew Fleming, he actually rewrote the role for her in mind for the movie. So they switched it all up, and they added the racial component in it as well in regards to Christine Taylor's character as well. So that was something that was changed for her to be in the movie specific, and she's terrific in the film, I think,
Oh,
because
she's
she's
incredible.
she's part of like some of the main kind of set pieces, like the whole
Mm.
thing about light as a feather, stiff as a board, the levitation scene.
Yeah.
That's like her that's in there,
Yeah.
and like and all that. So I think she was terrific. I think it's a really cool uh thing that they did to be able to change the character and be flexible enough to cast the right person in the role as they
Yeah,
did here.
absolutely. And that was like another reason why I think that film is ahead of its time too, because I was thinking about it last night. I rewatched it last night and I was like, how many teen movies at the time had in their principal cast a black person? Like it just wasn't, diversity in casting wasn't a thing. And I'm like, that is wild to me. Like I can't imagine anyone else playing that role but her.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's just such a strange thing to, because when you think about the movies from that time, the principal casts were very whitewashed,
yes.
except the craft. Mm.
Next in line, you got Neve Campbell. So she's like the big star here as Bonnie
Mm.
Harper. A thing about this movie that I was reading about in regards to casting in particular, even though Sony picked up the movie, it had a budget of $15 million. They still insisted on having some type of star attached to the movie. Um, and so they had this with her because I don't remember if you remember the TV show Party of Five. That was kind of big at the
Absolutely.
time.
Mm.
And this was 96, so Scream was coming out the same year as well, which is
Mhm.
funny because Skeet Ulrich is in this movie as well, so
Yes.
there's another Scream connection. So on top of her being just a great actress and everything else, she was the selling point for the movie. She was the person who was going to be on the poster. Afterwards, some of these people will become much more famous because of the film, but she was the person who was in it for sure. And then after her came Fairuza Balk. Um, Now she also was quite popular because she played Dorothy in Return to Oz that came out in the 1980s. So she's done some stuff.
Mm.
Um, Andrew Fleming actually said that she was a practicing pagan at the time. Um, and she like knew a lot about all of the movie and all that. It's interesting though because since then I found some interviews, even ones that she's done, um, just when the movie came out, saying she wasn't practicing a witch, she just was knowledgeable of it. But it seems to go back and forth between them two about whether she was or wasn't. Regardless,
Yeah.
she's fantastic in the movie because I think that role in particular, the villain, she's just
Mm.
so great. Her look is so
Yeah.
specific and so awesome. I think she was just fantastic in the film.
She's incredible. Like her performance, it's just like pitch perfect in every scene. Like she is like the glue of that film, I think. And what an interesting person too. Like I did some research about what she's up to now because I'm like, how, like, she's such a fantastic actor and it was such a powerful performance. Like, what did she do after this? And I remember seeing her in The Waterboy
Yeah,
um, with Adam Sandler, which I was like, oh, that's an interesting choice going from like The Craft to that. But apparently now she's working a lot, but she does more like indie projects and kind of
yeah.
picks and chooses the things that interest her rather than following the money. But yeah, she's incredible. I also saw that she purchased, and I haven't fact checked this, so I don't know if it's true or not. But I saw somewhere that she purchased the store that they go into, the witchcraft store. That's like a real store in LA, and she ran it for a couple years. I
This
thought
is
it was a
true.
fun fact.
So I found an interview where she talked about this.
Right.
So she said that she used to frequent there quite a bit. There was a man who worked there who had kind of encyclopedic knowledge of like everything. She was like paganism and Wiccan and all that stuff. And he was kind of like sort of a teacher for her. So what they were going to do, they're actually going to that place is going to be sold and turned into a restaurant. And
Oh,
she thought, it's really a shame because it's a local kind of like, establishment. It's something that they put a lot of work into and something that she really found and fell in love with. So yeah, she actually bought it. And she said that she bought it and she ran it for a little time. But the problem again, and one of the big reasons why she kind of stepped away from the limelight is because while the work was there, and she was also in American History X, don't forget that with
oh yeah,
Edward
of
Norton,
course. Yeah, yeah,
that one
true.
too. So
Mm.
while the work was there, what she didn't like was the media aspect of it. Because she
Right.
found, especially with this movie, with the whole, oh, she's a witch in real life and all that, it kind of just made her say, like, I could say anything and people are just going to take my words and throw it around. And
Yeah.
when she bought that store, she did it because her friend was in need and it was a place that she loved and everything else. But the media put it as, oh, practicing Wiccan buy store because, whatever.
Classic
And she
spin.
didn't like that. And that's one of the big reasons why she kind of stepped away from doing a lot of stuff like publicity and so. And I think her insistence on not doing that probably cost her roles. So of course,
Yeah.
studios as such are going to ask you to go out there and do stuff. She's like, no, why? Because they're going to type whatever they want anyway. But she did show up in the sequel, which is the sequel that came out years and years
Oh,
later.
the sequel. I actually have not watched the
Me either.
sequel. I was going to ask if you'd watched the sequel.
Mm.
I've read a couple reviews and I was like, oh, I could watch it. And I was like, don't do that to yourself, Lauren.
Sometimes some of these legacy sequels come out like 20 or 30 years after, and some movies are so specific for a time. And I think like when you grow up when you're a teen and you watch it, you have such an investment on it. If something
Mm.
comes out 20, 30 years, that's not for me to watch. That's for like, the next generation,
Yeah.
down for me to watch. And it's also a thing is like I've watched it. They perfected it. They did it. There's nothing they can really do coming up afterwards. If it was the same cast, and they
Yeah.
did it like 5 years after, then definitely will watch it. But it was like a whole different kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I chose not to. Yeah.
Yeah, I read that initially I think they were going to bring some of the cast back, and then that turned into just like a cameo by Fairuza Balk for like one scene or something. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, it's like sometimes you'll get a sequel that is better than the original. Like Godfather is a classic. I'm not saying that's my opinion, but like that is like, a widely held opinion. But I feel like it's quite rare for that to happen.
Well, I think in regards to the legacy thing, Top
Mm.
Gun Maverick, different
Yeah,
type of movie we're talking about here, but it comes out like 30 years after that movie. Now, I find Maverick, and I think a lot of people do find it much better
right.
than the first movie, because while I was saying before about certain movies are made for a certain time,
Mm.
sometimes they could be an advantage and disadvantage. I think the first Top
Yeah,
Gun has that sometimes as a
yeah,
disadvantage. With that
yeah,
second movie, because also the filmmaking, the evolution of filmmaking and such,
of
it was just
course.
much more an
Yeah.
immersive experience. Interestingly, you're saying about potential sequels. So Fleming actually said that even though the movie when it came out was a success because it was like $15 million budget, they made like $60 million at the US box office, which is pretty good.
Mm.
He did actually write a sequel. He did write a pilot for a TV show as well,
Oh,
and
wow.
neither of them got picked up.
That's
Um,
crazy. That's
Very
crazy.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what the reasoning was behind that, given that they did end up doing a sequel, but so long after.
I think maybe because I was saying before about how 96 was a specific kind of time where all the elements were together with the whole goth resurgence and the teen movie and all that, maybe it was perfect for then. If a movie came out maybe post that, maybe they felt that the people who watched it the first time, maybe they aged out of it.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, could be a
Yeah,
case.
interesting. Yeah, right. Yeah, just going back to speaking of Neve Campbell and Skeet Ulrich, like what a crazy year for them because I think Scream and The Craft released the same
Same
year.
year. Yep.
Wilds, like both such huge films.
And
Insane.
both like iconic teen horror movies. They kind of relaunched the teen horror film for better or worse. And that
Yeah.
afterwards, some duds would come, but like those two films specifically for that year
Oh yeah.
just work so well. And Eve Campbell especially. Now these days, now an actor can have TV and movie projects going
Mm.
parallel. Back then, though, to have a TV star kind of like transition to film, but
Mm.
also still be on TV and have two big films in the same
Yeah.
year,
Mm.
that was huge for her. That's like what made her like one for sure one of the biggest stars in the world at that time for sure.
Because when did Party of Five wrap up?
I think it was like 98 or so. They did bring that back as well because there was like a new version of Party of Five. I think they came back years later.
Really?
I think it only lasted a season or so.
Yeah,
And I'm
right.
not sure who of the original cast was back. Neve definitely wasn't back for that, though. I'm pretty sure. Maybe not Matthew Fox. It was the other bloke who was in Party of Five. Looked like a
Oh,
young Tom Cruise at the time.
yes, I know who you're talking about.
Got his
I
name.
can't think of his name right now.
Regardless, yeah, they did try to bring it back, but I don't think it worked as well. One thing that did work though for the craft, Robin Tuney as Sarah Bailey. Robin Tuney, who for me and I think a lot of men my age was like she was like the ultimate crush for such an incredible long time.
Yeah.
Um, However, names that were actually almost to be in that role, quite
Mm.
interesting. The first one, Angelina Jolie, was actually approached
Yeah.
to play the role
Paul Robbins' role.
for the
I
role
can't
of Sarah
imagine that.
Bailey. I
Yeah.
thought she'd be great. It would have been a great Fairuza. I think she has that kind of
Yeah.
intense kind of thing.
Yeah.
But she opted to do a movie called Foxfire instead.
Okay.
Another person who came in, and this is according to the film's producer, Scarlett Johansson came in to read for the role as well, but she was only 12 years old at the time, so it
Oh,
didn't work out.
definitely too young.
And then another person who came in, Alicia Silverstone. She had just filmed Clueless. Clueless hadn't come out yet by the time they were doing casting,
Yeah.
but she had something else on as well. So there was three actual people
Yeah, I could
who
see that
would have been
actually.
in that role. With
Yeah.
Alicia, I could see
I
Alicia
could
for sure.
see Alicia in that role, but like you said with Angelina, I feel like that her features and her intensity that she brings to a performance would have matched more the Nancy role. But yeah, so interesting.
So Robin Tooney comes in, but she didn't come in to read for the role. So she was known to the director. She only came in to be someone to do the tests with, like like when you do a test and like there's another person off camera. She was that, but she was
Really?
so good at doing that. They
Oh my
said, "Wow,
God.
she's like really good." So they offered her the role
Wow, that
of
is like every reader's audition reader's dream for them
yeah.
to.
I think actually Harrison Ford got the same thing with
Seriously?
Han Solo. Yeah, the same
Oh,
thing.
okay. Note to self, be a better reader.
But Robin didn't want to do the role of Sarah. She wanted to do the role that Neve Campbell was doing of
Yeah.
Bonnie. And she was like, I want to be Bonnie, I want to be Bonnie. And they're
Mm.
like, we're giving you the lead. We want you to be the lead. So they had to actually convince her to be the lead. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere.
Wow.
Another thing that was interesting about her as well is that she just did a film called Empire Records.
Oh, yes.
Um, and I don't know if you remember, she shaved her head in that movie. So she had,
Yeah. I saw,
so
you know what's
yeah,
funny? Sorry, I'll
go
let
ahead.
you.
No, go ahead, please.
So you know what's funny? I'd always like been like, wow, her hair really just like holds its style so well. Like I'd always
Hmm.
just been like, her hair, something about it. And then I only recently saw that because she'd obviously shaved her head for Empire Records, it was a wig, and I was like,
Yes,
pretty good wig. It's a
very good wig.
pretty
Very good wig. I had no idea. Like I remember Records.
yeah.
I wasn't sure of the timeline between the two until I just did the research now. Tell you the truth though, it doesn't put any dent whatsoever in my crush that I had for Robin Tuney
No,
at the time.
no.
Not at all.
Great wig.
We talked about other people in his movie, Skeet Ulrich,
Mm.
Christine Taylor, Breckin Meyer is in the film as well. So a lot of these people that like would appear in a lot of kind of teen movies and such, they kind of got their start in this film. So production of the film began in May 1, 1995, wrapped in July 1995. Some really cool places where they filmed at. So they go to a Catholic school. It's called St. Benedict's Academy in the movie. The school is actually called Verdugo Heights High School in Tuyunga. I'm not good at Spanish, so some of that kind of off. It's this film. This school has been around since 1937. Has been used in heaps of shows and movies.
Oh, right.
Better Off Dead,
Okay.
Heathers,
Mhm.
Beverly Hills 90210, My
Wow.
So-Called Life. All of them are used this school. It's one of the most. Like, I don't think there's three distinct schools in Los Angeles that are always used for
Wow.
TV and stuff. What do you think is the most famous place that you've ever filmed? Have you ever filmed somewhere where like other movies have been filmed and such? Do you have any ideas in regards to that?
That's a good question. I would probably, in terms of studios, it would be like Disney Studios, formerly Fox Studios in Sydney. Um, that was really cool. So we filmed IUR there on the volume. You know what the volume is. So
Yes.
in Sydney, that's the only place, as far as I know, that has a volume. And it was kind of this very exciting thing where, for most people, it was their first time shooting on the volume. So I would say there. And Docklands down in Victoria. In terms of location, mm, I don't know. I've shot at some really, really cool locations. I don't know that they would necessarily be like super famous or anything like that, but one that comes to mind was when we were shooting Ben Hall, we got to shoot a lot of the exterior town stuff in this. Um, it was kind of like, are you familiar with Old Sydney Town? It was like a
Yes.
colonial setup.
I've went there several times when I was in primary school. Yes, I
Yes,
remember it
yeah,
well.
the school excursions to Old Sydney Town.
Yeah.
So for anyone watching who isn't familiar with Old Sydney Town, what it was is basically like a recreation of like colonial town life. So they've set up like they've got like shops and they've got a school and they've got what it would have been like back then. Anyway, um, so when we were shooting Ben Hall, we were lucky enough to be able to shoot most of our exteriors in an abandoned town like that in Victoria.
Mm.
And it was up for sale because the owner had bought the land and it just so happened to have all of these like colonial style buildings and everything on it, like a full town. Um, they had bought the land with no intention to use that. I think they were actually trying to set up a monastery or something. Anyway, they were going to sell it. And we were like, can we film here? And they said yes. And so we just had access to this like old, like 1800s, like country western town. And so when we throw, I don't know if you remember, but we throw sort of like a Molotov cocktail at this bar building. That was all like a real thing and a real building. because they were going to demolish everything anyway. And obviously, we had the fire brigade there, and it was a controlled burn and everything like that. But that was probably, in terms of locations, like that really stands out in my mind because, like, it was real. We weren't on a studio lot. We were there in this town, and we really did throw a Molotov cocktail thing that was like a controlled burn. And that was probably one of the coolest locations that I've filmed in, I reckon.
I reckon some studio in Australia, I don't know, or whatever, should have snapped it up and just made a set out of it and just filmed a lot of westerns there. It would have been awesome.
It was like it had everything. It was incredible. But no, I think they were selling it and they were like, no, you can do whatever you want with it. Burn it, knock it down. We don't care. So yeah, crazy.
Another interesting location in the film, so the place where the girls get together and evoke the serum of Manon, the god that Nancy wants to inhabit her, is at this place called Leo Carrillo Beach in Malibu. Again, ton of movies filmed there. So the Karate Kid, the first one, where Daniel San practices his crane kicks, that one.
Right.
The beginning of Grease, where
Oh,
Johnny and Sandy are running around, that
same
one as
thing.
well.
Wow.
Point Break. There's a scene in Point Break where Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze fight against do have a big fight scene against other surfers. Also shot there as well. So again, this other great thing. I think one day I need to go to LA and just do a tour of all these movie hotspots. I reckon it'd be pretty cool.
That would be so fun. Although I feel like when you go to these places in real life, because you're so attached to how it looks on screen, and then you go there in real life and you're like, oh, yeah, right. It's a little bit different. It's always a bit of an uncanny feeling.
I remember the first time. I'm a big Seinfeld fan. I remember the first
Oh,
time that I found out that the cafe
yes.
of Monks, the inside is actually a studio in Los Angeles. The outside is real,
Yeah.
but the inside is fake. Because I was always said to my younger brother, who's also a big, we got to go to New York one day and go to Monks and we just be there. And then when you find out it's not real, you're just like, oh, damn
I know.
it.
I
Yeah.
had this realization, but when I went to New York, and because obviously the exterior is the same, but I didn't realize that the interior was shot like in a studio. So I was so excited. Me and my friends got the photo outside and I went inside and I was like, what is this? Where am I? What is this? Isn't the
Mhm.
Seinfeld Cafe?
That was a bummer for me.
Yeah.
Um, So this movie comes out May 3rd, 1996. So we're a couple of days away from the 30th anniversary. So again, $15 million budget makes $55.6 million, which is fantastic. It isn't one of the highest grossing films of the year because this is the year it also had Independence Day and the first Mission Impossible and such, but it is definitely one of the surprise kind of hits kind of thing in there. A big reason though why I think it didn't make more money, this was given an R rating in America, this movie.
Was it?
Hmm. Like
Wow.
today, it'll be a PG-13 or something, right?
Yeah.
And so, having watched it again, there's no nudity, there's hardly any swearing.
Mm.
So the reason why, according to director Andrew Fleming, is because the MPAA said that because it has paganism and Wicca and witchcraft, it's like endorsing black magic and such. And so they didn't want teenagers to watch it, which is fine because teenagers are the perfect kind of people to watch it. And even though they fought back against this and such, the R rating kind of stuck with it. Again, a very, very kind of odd because it was like it's given a this really heavy rating not based on the content but on the perceived perception of what it's trying to, I don't know, preach or whatever, which it doesn't do that either. I mean, I find it very, very odd. And I think yourself working in horror, I imagine like dealing with ratings boards and such, that they will always be a pain in the ass when it comes to a lot of these things.
Yeah, because obviously it like limits your audience and it also limits who wants to screen your film too, because they're like, well, that's cutting out a big portion of the audience as well. But yeah, ratings, classifications, and run times are like a real consideration when you're like screening your film in a cinema for sure. Mm.
Um, so some trivia, just I found extra trivia I had in here. So one of them was you haven't like read about stories about on horror movies especially. And again, when I tell you about messing with the dark arts, weird things going to happen and such. And I am going to ask you whether anything like that happened with you, but I'm just going to tell this one story first. The scene where they're at the beach and they're evoking Mano or whatever it was and the whole kind of thing. Supposedly, the park ranger who was there doing the supervision says that these are the highest the waves have ever been at this tide. And that scenes in the movie where like the waves can like hit the stuff and all that, where unexpected actually wiped out flames and sets and stuff like that because the waves weren't supposed to be that big and haven't been that big in ages. And so some people said, we're like, oh, maybe we accidentally kind of evoked something here,
Something.
which I do find interesting. I find all this stuff to be more coincidence than anything else. But do you ever had a moment like in a horror movie, so especially something like The Possessed, where you have a real life exorcist on set, John Jarrett's doing all the stuff and all that?
It's all happening.
Anything actually, anything actually happened that kind of freaked you out?
Yeah, quite a few things. So there was one on the possessed specifically. I got to my, so I told you earlier, in the interview, the first day we were like straight into a possession scene. We were filming, it was Halloween. We were filming on this set with a big pentagram on the floor. We're like evoking this spirit. It's a whole thing. And we're like, oh, we're kind of really asking for it here. Anyway, that night I went back to my hotel room. They had put me up in this really lovely hotel, went to sleep, and at 2 a.m., the alarm went off, like the fire alarm. And I like jump out of bed. I'm like, oh my gosh, the building's on fire. And you have to wait for further instructions. So I'm like, what do I do?
Hmm.
And I called reception and they were like, "Oh, so sorry. There's no fire. There's just like an electrical issue. Just wait for it to pass and just go back to sleep. We're sorry for that." And I was like, "Okay, it's all right." Next day, went to work. More of the stuff in the pentagram and all of the invoking and the went to sleep. That night at 2 a.m., the fire alarm goes off again, and I'm up and I'm like, "Oh my God." So I call reception and I'm like, "Hey, um, what's going on? Like this happened again last night." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Well, the fire, you can hear the fire alarms going off." And they're like, I'm like, it's the building. And they're like, no, tonight it's just your room. And they're like, we'll send someone down. Like, oh, okay. So they sent someone down and they're like, yeah, don't know, like it's only your room. And so went back to sleep. Then the next day I was like, I can't be doing this. I can't be waking up at 2 a.m. every night. Go to work. Come back, sitting on the couch in the lounge room, and I have this like overwhelming feeling to check the cupboard in the hallway. I
Hmm.
don't know why. Like, I don't suddenly get urges to like randomly check cupboards. So I was like, I should probably listen to it. I open the cupboard in the hallway, and there is a giant tropical looking spider in there.
Wow.
Giant. And I was like, all right, this is a sign. I'm calling reception and I'm like, hey, can I move rooms? And they're like, sure. And then nothing happened after that. But
Okay.
yeah, it was kind of like every day for 3 days. And I was like, something doesn't want me in here. So I'm taking the hint. And then it was fine. But yeah, I've had quite a few weird things. I've had one other incident where I'll keep it short and sweet, but I was making a film called Waterhorse, which is about a curse. And we were filming this scene in this recreated miner's hut from like the 1860s. And it was
Hmm.
kind of built on the site of an actual miner's hut and made in the same like visage and everything. And it was a skeleton crew. So it's just me, the director, the soundy, and this was a handy cam shot. So I've got the camera and I'm filming my co-star Dean, who is standing here, and there's no one else in the cabin. And Jen, the director, and Janine, the soundy, are behind me. And I'm filming Dean, and we do the scene, and blah blah blah. It's in night vision. And then Jen's like, "Okay, great. I just want to watch it back and make sure we got that." And when you watch it back, you can very clearly see a face appear next to Dean, and there is
Wow.
no one there. And we watched it back again and again, and we're like, yeah, it's a face. Like, I don't know. So that was pretty freaky. But
That sounds very creepy.
yeah.
Is that footage available anywhere for anyone to see, or did you guys kind of like burn that in like, and then douse it in holy water?
She might have put it in like the special features or something, but
Okay.
yeah, it's I'll ask her actually. I hope she has because it's cool to see, freaky to see, but I think it's cool.
Cool, but I got
Yeah.
goosebumps just
Yeah.
now when you were just saying it actually.
Yeah.
Um, the craft that we all know, you and I are talking about how much we're fans of it. There's other unexpected fans of this movie as well. So one of the
Okay.
person who actually lined up to watch the film at opening night was director Mike Nichols, who directed The Graduate and The Birdcage. He watched it as well. And then Robin Tuney said that one day she had a meeting with Sean Penn about working on a project. And she
Mm.
asked him, "How did you know about my work?" And he said, "I love the Witch movie." So Sean
Oh,
Penn, big fan of The Craft. So that's pretty cool as well.
maybe I love that.
And then another fan, Katy Perry. The song "Dark Horse" from the what was it, Teenage Dream single, is actually inspired by The Craft.
No,
So because the song is about warning the guy that if you're going to fall in love with me, make sure you're sure, because if you're not, it's going to be your last. So I imagine it'll be like the
inspired by the craft.
yeah, inspired by The
That's
Craft. So I imagine
fun.
she's inspired by maybe that Skeet Ulrich had the spell put on him, and he's obsessed with Robin Tooney's character. So yeah, Dark Horse is inspired by The Craft, which is pretty cool. Maybe they should do a because the thing's coming out, they should re-release the film in cinemas into a trailer with Dark Horse in the background. That
Yes,
should be pretty cool.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Any
that's so
anyone at
cool.
Sony listening, I'm free for hire. So yeah. So yeah, The Craft, I mean, 30 years since this came out. And I remember it like yesterday when I first watched it because, I fall in love with Robin Tooney and I love the movie and everything else. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be able to talk to someone about this film because yeah, I have much affection for it. Watched it again recently, still pretty cool. I'm
Yeah.
wearing all black today, just in case you don't know, just in honor of it. And yeah, I just want to say thank you very much, Lauren, and congratulations to you for your career so far. And best of luck with the upcoming films. I think Pray for Dawn and RUR and such sound really interesting, especially RUR with Alex, and see what he's doing with everything you guys were in the volume stage and doing all the stuff he does now with visual and special effects and everything. It's going to be very interesting to see. But until before then, I encourage everyone out there to check out Lauren's work. I'm going to have links in the show notes and also a link to your Instagram if that's okay, Lauren, so they can check out your stuff there. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. I hope we can talk again about another movie in the future, or perhaps even one of your films. So it'll be great to do.
That'd be great. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.